in review. In a moment, Ryan in Sacktown will join us. We've got a lot to go over. The first thing I want to do before I bring Ryan in is I want to thank all of you for your support, your participation through these various shows that we've done. We've done countless number of shows. Ryan has done the pregame shows mostly by himself, and then, of course, halftime and postgame and other additional programming that we've had here. Jerry Reynolds on Wednesdays, Jerry on the postgame show like yesterday, and so I want to thank you for all of your support, and I know I speak for Ryan as well. It was a heck of a season. Ryan in Sacktown, so happy that you can join me to go over this season in review. We have a lot to talk about. I'm going to let you begin. Just give me your general thoughts on what we saw as the Kings faithful, the fans this year now that it's in the books.
Man, Grant, that's a big question. We saw magic. To be honest with you, it was a throwback to better times in Kings basketball. It was a roller coaster. We saw ups, downs, and we got to see Golden One Center at its absolute best and roaring. I mean, Arco would be proud of Golden One Center this last couple of weeks. So just an incredible season all around, Grant.
All right, here are my thoughts, and then we'll get into some particulars. I think that most people thought that the Kings could be a play-in opponent. In other words, they could be a play-in team and play, whether it was 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th. I, for one, didn't have the Kings being able to finish in the top 6. So I thought their best way to get into the dance was as a play-in seed 7, 8, 9, 10. They did more than that. They won 48 games. Yeah, they were the beneficiary of some injuries, okay? But that's all part of it. And the reality is they played very well and consistently throughout the whole season, with maybe the exception of the first week and a half. They won 25 games on the road, most of any team in the Western Conference. What they did not do well, they did not play well at home this year. Right. And you saw it in the playoffs. They lost 2 home games. It's very difficult to win a series in the playoffs when you lose 2 home games. So I'm looking at the big picture. I would give this team a big-time A, okay? And then I would say, if I'm looking at just one thing that I'd like to see this team get better at next year, play better on your home floor. Ryan, how many times did you and I come on after these shows talking about, I can't believe the Kings lost? San Antonio, Charlotte, Washington, Philadelphia without Embiid and Harden. And we can go on and on. There were a lot of bad home losses this year.
Yeah, there were. And obviously that's backwards for Sacramento Kings basketball as we know it. But there were also some really, really good home wins that kind of made up for it. But that's the sign of a young team, Grant. Mm-hmm. And this is a team, for the most part, that has not been through. I mean, the season that this team went through in terms of coming out of nowhere for the most part. And the fact that I guess you could almost say, Grant, the season was a little backwards in a way, right? The way they did things. They went on the road. They stay healthy. They don't get hurt. But I think that's going to come with time. And I would expect as this team continues to gel, I mean, most of the core will be back, that they will get better on the home floor.
All right, let's talk first of all about the playoff series, and then we'll work our way back.
Yeah.
I thought the Kings did a magnificent job in the totality of the series based on their competition. I thought the Kings lost this series, not yesterday. I believe the Kings lost this series in Game 3. They had won games 1 and 2. They went into San Francisco without Draymond Green and without Gary Payton too, and they lost. Not only did they lose, they really weren't in the game in the fourth quarter. I thought that was their big opportunity to capitalize on the Warriors being shorthanded, and they did not do it. And so when I look at all the games, that's the one that jumps out at me. What about you?
Yeah, Game 3 is the one that jumps out at me. It's not so much the loss in Game 3, it's how they lost in Game 3. Mm-hmm. They were absolutely blown out of the building. Golden State did not have their A team, and you're talking about a team that had lost 2 in a row to the Kings, which isn't unnormal with playoff basketball because the Kings were the home team.
Mm-hmm.
But, the Kings' momentum was going like this, and Golden State's confidence was very fragile at that point.
Yes, it
Don't get
was.
me wrong.
Yes, it
Curry's
was.
superstar, but they were on the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
And the Kings just came out flat. And that was kind of like a restart for this series. It was that reset button that the Warriors needed.
All right. I want to also thank the sponsors, and I want to start with New Works Plumbing of Sacramento. They've been with me for the totality of me doing all of my shows on my various platforms. So I want to thank them. New Works Plumbing of Sacramento, locally owned for over 20 years. They've got a fix for you. Go to sacserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. That's New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. All right. Something else and I talked about this on my rant today. And I talked about this earlier when you and I were on with Sean Salisbury. I thought the Kings played better in this series than I thought they would. And I didn't think the Warriors played as well as I thought they would. And I think that's why the series went 7 games. That's number one. Number two, De'Aaron Fox has shown the basketball world that he's more than an all-star. He is now turned into, in my opinion, an elite player in this league. And so for that, Ryan, I think the Kings are in very good hands moving into the future.
Yeah, De'Aaron he took a couple of next steps this year, but
Yes, he did.
to me, he is absolutely a superstar. He is a silent leader. He leads through his play, and that's part of the reason that he won the inaugural Clutch Player of the Year. But Golden State, yeah, I thought that they had their A game, and I said this on the earlier show, and the Kings did not, and it still went 7 games.
Yes. That's exactly right. All right, so there were a lot of questions, and we're getting a lot of questions about Harrison Barnes. I think that's going to be the number one question heading into this offseason. What do you think? On the team next year? Should he be on the team next year? Or is it time to kind of change the scenery a little bit?
Yeah, I think Harrison should be on the team for the right price and in the right role. I don't think Harrison should be a starter on this team going forward. I know you talked about that on your Listen app show, and I'm in full agreement there. If you can get Harrison for the right price, I think he could be very effective off the bench, and he could be very effective in the locker room as this team continues to gel with some young pieces.
I'm a big Harrison Barnes fan. Huge. I was around him every day. His work ethic, his professionalism is as good as anyone that I've seen in all my years of doing the Kings games. For the right price, I would love to have Harrison Barnes on this team. I'm not so sure that I want him starting now. I was disappointed in his performance, and I'm not talking about the missed shot in game whatever it was. That I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about just I need more consistency from him. And we'll get to the other starters in a minute. But he does so many things that fans are not even aware of for this basketball team. So for that reason, I want him on the team next year.
Yeah, and something that would be invaluable. So I agree with you there.
The experience that the Kings got, and that's a great message, is invaluable. You must experience playoff basketball and build on that. And I think for the younger players and Fox too, Keegan Murray, I mean, look at how he grew in this series. Think about Keegan Murray in the first 5 games and Keegan Murray in the last 2 games, right? That's going to carry over to next year. I'm very excited about him as one of the real big pieces of the future of this team, Ryan.
Well, Grant, you look at it, he should be part of the big 3 of this team, assuming Sabonis does re-sign after next season. And the big thing you hit, Keegan adjusted. That's what we wanted to see. Just see that he was able to adjust, because that's what NBA basketball, particularly the playoffs, is all about.
All right. What about Trey Lyles?
I am in the middle with Trey. I think he fits. I think the fabric of what he does fits perfectly for this team. I think it's going to be a matter of whether Trey wants to come back and whether the number is right for Trey to come back. I know that he said kind of in his exit interview, this is the first time he feels like he's really been at home with an NBA team and he would like to be back. So I think that he should be back if it works out.
All right. So we gave midterm grades, which was past the midterm. It was the All-Star break. I gave the Kings an A. Correct me if I'm wrong. You gave them an A-, right?
Correct.
All right. I'm leaving their entire season with an A. I'm not giving them an A+ because A+ to me is like near perfection, and they weren't that. But I'm on the totality of everything that we're talking about. I'm giving them an A. What's your grade?
I'm bumping them up to an A from an A minus.
Okay.
They finished the job. I mean, Grant, they
Mhm.
came out of the All-Star break, and granted, they were beneficiaries of some guys sitting out, but they took care of their business and they won, I think, 7 or 8 games in a row, and I think they were 10 of 12 right out of the break. And from there on, that started some momentum that carried through pretty much to the end of the season. Playoffs, you take the Warriors to a game 7. I mean, what more can you ask for
Yep.
from a team like this?
All right. What about Kevin Huerter? He's obviously going to be on the team, but he was
Yeah,
very disappointing in the playoffs. At game 6, he made a couple big shots, but even in that game 6, he was only 3 of 11. And so I expected a lot more from Kevin Huerter, and we didn't get that from Kevin Huerter. We didn't get it at all. I mean, I was very disappointed. Ryan, you can't have your shooting guard with those type of numbers. I mean, that was a real big issue and why the Kings did not win this series. Not blaming it on him. I'm just saying it was a big
right.
issue.
Yeah, it is. In terms of Kevin Herter, the macro level, the 1,000 foot view, I think Kevin's going to be just fine, and I'm not worried about him really because guess what? Shooters are going to go through slumps. What encourages me about Kevin is he realizes when he's going through a slump and he tries to get to the basket. He tries to get other guys involved. And Grant, something a lot of people did not talk about this series, even though he was shooting the ball poorly, his defense was pretty darn good
Mhm.
against Klay Thompson and switching on to Steph Curry. So I think Kevin, the shooting will come. That's his bread and butter. The rest of the game, can he grow in the other areas like the mid range? That's what I want to see.
It's a great point by Jay. It's fine and dandy to say you don't want this guy and you don't want that, but you better make sure if they're gone that you get better players. And a lot of times fans do not factor that in. I mean, the grass is not always greener on the other side. But I think in order for this team to take the next step, I do think you need, and again, I'm a big Harrison Barnes fan. I'd like to have him on the team, but maybe in a different role, maybe as a, 7th or 8th man behind Malik Monk.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where Harrison could fit in. But, the question becomes, is that a role Harrison is willing to take and at what cost?
Hmm. You and I earlier, we did a show on YouTube with Sean Salisbury. And a couple of weeks ago, Sean talked to me about a very disturbing scene that he came across where 3 dogs were left in a garage, chained up, basically left to die. And Sean rescued them. And we got a lot of people that were reaching out after that episode. And so tomorrow, we're having Jay Griffiths on from Gold Country Veterinary and Hospital. And we're also having on Amanda Connors from Fosters and Paws. They're a group of animal advocates, and they do work primarily with dogs in shelters. Jay's Hospital is in Auburn. They do all kinds of great work, including urgent care. And we've listed some of the procedures they've done on a daily basis. So tomorrow, Sean and his excerpts from the interview that I did with him a couple of weeks ago, including a footnote to what he said today, will be on along with Jay and Amanda from Fosters and Paws. And we are very much looking forward to that. That's tomorrow on If You Don't Like That. And I got to tell you, I've owned a dog ever since I was 7 or 8 when I got my first dog on Christmas Eve, and have had him through my life. And I tell you, I learned some things from Jay and Amanda. So that's tomorrow on If You Don't Like That. And Sean, how great is Sean? Even today, the follow up to what he's done.
Yeah,
Sean just doesn't talk. Sean's actions speak louder than his words.
exactly right. Yeah, that story, that episode you guys did was amazing, and the work that Jay and Amanda do, awesome. So very, very cool to have them on tomorrow.
All right, let's get back to some of the King stuff. I think Herter needs to be gone or come off the bench. Well, he's not going to be
He's not.
gone, and he's not coming off the bench. He's your starting 2 guard. I mean, he had a good year. I mean, let's not make it seem like he didn't have a good year, but he did not have a good playoffs.
No, and I'm not going to put everything, and I know we'll kind of get through this as we go through the show. I'm not going to put everything on Kevin. Look, Kevin started to get a different look as the season went on. And sure, does the player need to adjust, but the coaching needs to adjust to that. And a lot of times the Kings offense did get a little stale. It was predictable. And, Kevin, he thrives off of the dribble handoff. And that was taken away a lot towards the end of the season.
The answer to this question is we got all kinds of programming. That's why if you subscribe, if you have not
Yep.
yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. A lot of people think they're committed to anything. No, it's just you get notified of everything. It doesn't cost you any money. You're not getting spam emails. You're not getting bothered. It's not like somebody's getting on the phone and trying to track down your number. You just hit subscribe, and that way you know everything that we are doing. Okay? So, yeah, we've got a lot of things coming on. All right. There's my New York Giants, the guy that works with Iron Eagle calling me to go over the Giants draft. He has to know that, I'm working right now and I'm watching game 7 of the Rangers, which pisses me off because they're down 2-0. Well, take the word superstar out of there. You're not going to get a superstar. They're a good player, another good player away, I think, from being one of the top 4 teams in the league. What do you think?
Yeah, they're a solid third option away.
Mhm.
They don't have that right now. They have Fox, Sabonis, and now when we think about who's it going to go to, we go to the jumble of is it Barnes, is it Herter, is it Lyles, is it Monk? They need that third guy, and like you said,
Mhm.
Grant, doesn't have to be a superstar, but somebody that is just dependable, that's a veteran that can be a 3-and-D on the wing and just kind of adjust and really function well in the system that the Kings run.
All right, without talking about the record and without the Kings playoffs, for you, what is the biggest sense of wow? Like, what was the Kings this year that just leaves you with a great feeling heading into the offseason? Not their 48 wins, not their 25 road wins, but just maybe we're talking about an individual. Maybe we're talking about the coach. Maybe we're talking about something else. What does this season leave you with?
Um, Culture change. I think about the culture and I think about foundation. That's what it leaves me with. It's not that I'm blown away. We were a 3 seed because in a typical league without injuries, this team's probably a 6 seed, Grant, in the
Yep.
Western Conference.
Yep.
But to see the consistency that we were getting from the front office, to see just there was quality guys on and off the court, and you can
Hmm.
tell they enjoyed playing together. And that makes a huge difference for
Huge.
Sacramento as a fan base because, we appreciate people that work hard and work together. And when you see that and you see that kind of
That's
basketball, which
great.
we really hadn't seen since 2002, 2005, that is the big thing for me. And that's something that doesn't go away in a year as long as you keep those big pieces in place together.
Here we go. Right spot on what you just said.
Yeah.
Chemistry and foundation. You don't have Dylan Brooks on this team, and you have to deal with malcontents like that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
embarrassing when you have players like that, and we know we went through a stretch where that was all that we were talking about, right? See the
Yep.
difference when you have a culture change and everything is cohesive in the locker room. I mean, it's so
Yep.
much more enjoyable to root for the team, is it not?
Oh, it makes all the difference in the world when we're talking about basketball after the games and we're not talking about,
Hmm.
spats on the bench. We're not talking about ejections. It's so much different.
Okay, so not all the fans feel about this. Okay, um, I think that Monty's done a great job. Okay, I don't think there's any question about that. But I'm okay. And again, I'm not aware of what deals were there or what wasn't there. But I'm okay with not mortgaging the future. I'm okay with that. If he didn't feel like, hey, we're not going to jeopardize the future by trying to have a quick fix right now, I'm okay with that. So listen, this team is set up well for the future. Okay, yesterday is set up well for the future, and Monty knows that, and he wasn't going to do anything stupid.
No, and Grant, you look at some of the teams that tried to go for a quick fix, and where are they at right now? The Clippers are at home, right? The Lakers are doing pretty well. We'll give them some props. The Warriors made a decent move, but Monty said, "Look, it's better to keep this team together the way they are. They have chemistry instead of rocking the boat."
I don't really know about this, but there's been a lot of talk about Davion only playing 8 minutes, which is mystifying to just about everybody that you and I have talked to. I
Yeah.
still don't understand that. I really do not understand that. And I don't think the Kings win the game anyway, but I don't think Steph Curry would have had 50 points. I think we can all agree on that, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And Terrence Davis has been, and I'm going to speak directly about him because he got the majority of Davion's minutes. Wildly inconsistent, and the only benefit typically of having him on the court is, yeah, he's a little bit bigger, but sometimes he can get hotter than Davion gets. And you saw it wasn't working. He caught a couple threes. And what did he do, Grant? He turns around and does a
Mhm.
heat check. Terrible
Yep.
shot. Doesn't even
Yep.
make it to the hoop.
Yep.
And that foul at the end of the third quarter. At that point, I'm thinking, if Mike Brown does not take him out, something is off. That 4-point play just
Huge.
changed everything.
Huge.
It took the wind out of
Huge.
the arena and probably out of most fans' sails that the
Right.
Kings could mount a comeback.
It was a huge momentum swing in the game. I mean, the Warriors had controlled the third quarter, even despite all their missed free throws. But if that 4-point play does not occur, I think the Kings start that fourth quarter with a whole different feel. But there was no. I just, again, we saw how well Davion played in the previous 6 games. That's why it's mystifying, unless he's got an injury that they're not disclosing, why he would only play 8 minutes in an elimination game. I mean, I always make this analogy, Ryan. This is like a baseball game with your starting pitcher in a game 7. If that starting pitcher does not have a stuff even in the first inning, you're going to the bullpen.
Right.
Why are you going to the bullpen on Davion Mitchell based on what he's done in the first 6 games?
Exactly right, Grant. And if you look at the games the Kings won, most of them were centered around defense. Defense won those games.
Yes.
Curry was off a little bit. Clay
Yep.
was off a little bit, and Davion played a huge hand in that. So when you get to the most important game of the series and of the season to just make a U-turn on the strategy, that's you. When Jerry Reynolds came on the post-game show, he said Davion must be hurt, or we'll find out in the
Absolutely.
post game, press conference, because it just doesn't make any sense. So he was right there too.
I don't get it. Maybe the Kings don't win the game. Another shocking aspect of the game yesterday, and I never thought I'd ever see this. I never thought I'd see a game where Steph Curry and Klay Thompson missed consecutive free throws at the line.
Yeah.
I was blown away. Curry's free throw shooting in the last 2 games was horrible, and that's amazing considering he scored 50. But, I mean, think about that. Both Curry and Thompson in the game yesterday missed the front and back end of free throws.
It's more than free cookies for the crowd. Let's just put it that way. If you tell me Curry and Thompson are going to miss 2 free throws in a game, I'm also guessing a lot more things are going to go the other team's way, which may lead to a win. But yeah, very rare. It was a weird game 7, 21 rebounds in the third quarter when the Warriors only had 21 rebounds at the half.
I know. How about that? And Kevon Looney was the man. He looked like,
yes.
I mean, he was toying with the Kings underneath. The Kings had no answer. I mean, it was hard to believe, wasn't it?
It was. And even you look back, I watched a little bit of game 7 last night after the fact. And even some of the Kings rebounds that they got off of tipped balls were by Looney. They weren't actually by Kings players. So he dominated down low when it came to the glass.
Warriors 19 of 30 from the line for 63%. That's pathetic. But even more pathetic is 59% from the line, 16 of 27. And we saw that in 2002 in game 7. Now, even if you make all your free throws, you're probably not winning that game yesterday. But the point is, that's alarming on your home court in a game 7. The free throw shooting was that bad yesterday. Again, it was bad for both teams, so I get that. But when you're the Kings and you are, for all intents and purposes, the underdog, and I know they were a 1-point favorite, but I think they were the underdog in game 7. I mean, you just cannot do that. That was just awful. You cannot shoot that way at the line. That's 2 game 7s that we've had now horror stories at the free throw stripe.
It is, Grant. And I'm going to throw a couple other things at you. The Kings, Mike Brown coming into this series, pace, 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 pace. You know how many fast break points the Kings had yesterday? 2.
Not many.
2
I think
points.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Yep. They had 2 fast break points, which is unbelievable. And the Warriors starting 5, they were a plus 130. Kings starting 5, minus 99.
Yep. Unbelievable.
How many games? That's a shocking difference.
Sabonis minus 22, Barnes minus 20, Murray minus 17, Fox and Huerter minus 20. How about that for you? How about that? Huerter, 1 of 6 from downtown. Fox, 3 of 10. I'm giving him a complete pass. Lyles, 1 of 4, right? Mitchell missed both of his frees. Monk didn't have a good game, 2 of 8 from downtown. Most NBA games come down to 3-point shooting. And for Sacramento, 12 of 47 for 25%. That's it. 12 of 47 at home in an elimination game, and on top of that, 11 missed free throws. That's not going to beat any team in the league.
No, and Grant, the other we've seen the Kings win games, especially towards the end of the season where the
Mm-hmm.
three ball was not falling, but they were dominating inside. They had 60 points in the paint, 70 points in the paint, and that was like a sacred area this series. The Kings were not able to get in there. So then you combine that with the three ball not falling, how are you going to score?
I'm with you. And again, we're looking at everything that happened in this year. The fact that the Kings started off 0 of 4 or 0 and 4, not 0 for 4, 0 and 4, okay, and still were able to win 48 games and be the number 3 seed is remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable to me that you can make it a 77 games or 78 game season, which is what they did, and still win as many games as they did. I'm looking at the positives here. This was one hell of a season for this franchise.
It was Grant, we go back to the same question. If I told you at the beginning of the season you would win 48 games, you would have 2 All-Stars, you would have a guy that got an MVP vote, you would have probably one guy that's all NBA, or one of the 3 teams all NBA. You will have a guy that breaks the rookie 3-point record, you'll have the unanimous coach of the year, and you will be a 3 seed in the West. Would you have asked for a drug test on the spot? I mean,
Yeah, I know, right? Oh my gosh. No, Fox should not have spoken up. I mean, that's not his job. Okay. He plays and Mike Brown coaches. You can ask him after the game, but during the game, no, absolutely not. Not at all. I mean, I think we also have to be careful. That doesn't mean the Kings would have won the game. They might have had a better chance. But we're also understand this, and this is part of being a sports fan. It's part of being what we do. We're talking about a coach that was the first unanimous coach of the year in the history of the NBA.
yeah,
And we're kind of talking like he didn't know what he was doing yesterday. Well, he knows a lot more about this team than Ryan and I and you do. So, I mean, he didn't really make moves this year that left you scratching your head. Yesterday, we were left scratching our head. So it kind of tells me there must have been something else going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to, because it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it could have been, Gary Payton had a food illness or, a stomach illness
Yep,
earlier in the series. Davion may have been sick. Who knows? Usually that stuff gets reported by the
exactly.
end. I mean, like today, Sabonis announced that he was seeing the doctor today. He's going to see the next steps. Surgery may be in line.
Yep.
Stuff like that comes out. Keegan came out, said that he was playing with the same fracture as Sabonis from earlier in the season. So who knows? I'm sure if it is anything, it will come out in the future, but we do have to trust Coach Brown because other than leaving the starters in a little bit too much when games were out of hand, he was pretty spot on all year, Grant.
He was great. I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal. Really appreciate so many of you joining us here on the stream. And I want to tell you about Mother's Day. If you have not yet made your Mother's Day plans, Bennett's is a great option for you. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com and you better hurry. All right. There aren't many left. There are some. I had lunch with Brian and Jerry Reynolds on Friday. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. That's Bennett'sRestaurants.com and make your Mother's Day reservation. And we thank them for all they've done on this stream as well. Well, the season is over, but it's not disappointing. It's just that they're not playing anymore. But I would say this: when's the last time Kings fans were this thirsty for the start of the next season, where they can't wait for this next season, right? I mean, it's going to be pretty fun leading up to the beginning of camp in September and the first games in October.
Oh, it's gonna kind of be like 0-2, honestly, Grant, where you just can't. It hurts, but you can't wait for that ball to get rolled out on the court again. It's nice not to be paying attention to the draft lottery for the first time in 16 years and worrying whether or not they pick the right guy. And Kings fans, even where the Kings are going to be picking this year, you can still get some good talent. Kawhi Leonard came from that range. So we'll see. But yeah, it's going to be exciting for this season to start again.
All right. My 2 big needs for next year. I think the Kings need a veteran, established backup point guard. Okay. That's what they need. They also need a banger down low. They cannot get manhandled on the boards the way they did with Kevon Looney. So those are my 2 wishes. What about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you with those two spots. They've got to have an athletic banger for sure. This is not going to be a defensive team, so it's got to be somebody that's a banger that can also score the ball because it's going to be very offensive minded. I also think a veteran point guard. Somebody on your show earlier mentioned Josh Hart. I know we kind of talked about him on right after the trade deadline
Yes,
when
we
he
did.
came in here. And what did he have? 16 or 17 rebounds against the Kings on national
That's right.
TV. He would be a perfect fit. And it's whoever's going to be available, but it needs to be somebody that would be ready to start and fill in for Fox and, help this team not miss too big of a beat. And I'm going to throw a third one in there. They need a scrappy guy. They need somebody, and not like a Dylan Brooks that's dirty, but they need a scrapper. They need a dog on this team that will just come in and do all of the dirty work,
Yep.
that loves to do the dirty work.
It's a great point. Ryan, I'm going to help you out here. I don't know if you watch much hockey, but I'm going to give you a little bit of information here.
Okay.
It is impossible to win a hockey game if you don't score.
It is.
And I'm not happy.
I know. I know, Grant. I know.
They're going to lose game 7. Rangers not scoring,
Grant, I was actually perplexed that you weren't actually taking the call about the Giants draft while watching the Rangers game and doing this show at the same time. But
because you know what? My answer about the Giants draft would be the standard answer. I'll let you know in 3 years.
Yeah. Well, you're not those draft grades. There's a lot of weight that's put into those.
Grant. Oh, so stupid. That's what it is.
Yeah.
All right, NBA. Boy, how about Philadelphia going into Boston tonight and winning without Joel Embiid? They went into Boston and they won that game 119-115. Harden went off. The other game is just starting the second quarter, and the Suns lead 21-20. But how about that Sixers team without Embiid going into the Garden and winning game 1?
Hey, difficult place to go in and win a game this year. The Garden's been rocking, and Harden, time for him to step up, and he did today. And good for them. I mean, this NBA postseason is completely up for grabs. It changes on a daily basis on who's going to be the front runner.
Patrick, don't worry, Patrick. I understand that the Knicks. I understand what he has done there, Patrick. Don't worry about it, buddy. We got you. Thank you for watching the stream. We do appreciate that all the way in New York. I guess we can just conclude this show by saying this. This was a lot of fun this year. When Ryan and I started doing this, I don't even remember when we started doing this. Was it back in January?
No, it was before that. It was, I think it was November-ish is when you started going back and forth between the two platforms.
Okay, so think about when we started doing this, we had no idea. And thank you so much for your donation. We greatly appreciate that. And your support means a lot. Our plans for next year are going to be at least what they are now. I can promise you that. But when we started doing this, I guess you said back in November, who could have possibly envisioned that we were following a team that was going to be a 3 seed in the Western Conference and take the Warriors to the limit in the playoffs? That's why you play the games. That's why you had Miami play Milwaukee in the first round, right?
Yep.
If you knew what was going to happen in sports all the time, you probably wouldn't be much fun. Obviously, if you could gamble, if you knew what was going to happen, it would be a lot of fun. But we watch sports because of the unknown. Why were Kings fans paying $4,000, $8,000, $15,000, $20,000 yesterday for a pair of tickets? They wanted to be there. They wanted to enjoy the passion and the excitement. And you don't know what's going to happen. That's the beauty of sports. That's why we all love watching games and participating and going to games. That's why so many of us travel halfway around the world to go to games. Danny from England coming all the way over for games 1 and 2. Didn't even have tickets when he left England. I mean, it's just people love their sports and their teams. And that's why we love doing these shows. It's great.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And, Grant and I are constantly chuckling behind the scenes about different comments that may have not made it on air. And, doing it for all you. It's fun because we're sitting here and being fans of the team too. Grant's being a fan of the fans here in Sacramento. And
And
we abs
yeah, I'm sorry. I just had to jump in here real quickly. Yeah, Ryan, the first time was a little nervous. I was
yeah.
nervous the first time I was on TV too. He's not nervous anymore. It's all good. All right. It's called growth. He grew as much as the Kings grew this year. How's that for you?
Thank you, Napes. I remember Napes like after the first one, he's like, "Don't worry, the red light will go away. You won't even notice it." And it for me, it's like feeling that big pimple on your forehead. No, it's not gonna go away, and then it goes away. But yes, it's been a fun journey. So
I always tell people,
fun
hey,
journey.
listen, if you're tuning in to watch, how I look, how I'm dressed, my ugly face, then you're probably on the wrong channel. You're joining me for my content, and you're joining me for saying, oh, if you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball. Oh boy, that's what you're joining me for. You're not joining me for, gee, I wonder what Grant's wearing today. Gee, let's, that's not,
Is he wearing a hat or not? But no, Grant, it's been so much fun. I mean, even the event we did with our getting our head shaved and raising
Oh, it was
16
great.
grand and the turnout, it's
Yeah.
just been a magical year. There's no other way to put it.
All right, Vaj, I did check my email. I have forwarded those to Ryan. Ryan, for those that are still, can you give us any additional update on people
Yeah,
that have yet not received their shirts?
Yeah, Vaj, I'm checking with the shipping carrier because I told you about the issue that we had with the difference between shipping address and billing address. That was my fault. But there are others that were sent out that have not been received yet. USPS told me that it's not unnormal. They are having some slow deliveries. So I will follow up just as Grant has followed up with all of you individually, and you will have a shirt one way or another. If I have to drive it to your house, I will, which I
Uh,
have done.
yes, and I applaud you for that. Personally, I wouldn't want Draymond Green on the Warriors. I would not want to deal with all of the distractions that he brings. Is he a hell of a player? He is a hell of a player. But me personally, I'm just I wouldn't want to deal with that. But there are teams that are going to want him. That's for darn sure. Would you want Draymond Green on the Kings?
No, the juice isn't worth the squeeze at this point in his
Mm.
career. The Kings would be a stepping stone for him. That they would just be a platform.
All right. All right. Here's one for you about Sabonis. He's been the heart of the team all year. If he decided to have surgery, we'd be talking about draft prospects right now. Great. I think that's well said. Listen, he did not have a good postseason, but see, this is why we can be critical of him. He played with that same injury from the last week of December all the way until now with no issues, meaning productivity wise. I'm not saying it didn't hurt. I'm talking
Hmm.
about production wise. No issues. Triple doubles, right? How many triple doubles did he have this year?
Oh
So
gosh.
a lot. So the point that I'm making, and I think a lot of others are making, I can't use his injury for his ineffectiveness in this series. Because to me, the injury had nothing to do with it unless he re-injured it during the postseason, which nobody knows about. What I saw from Sabonis in the months of January, February, March, and before the playoffs began in April was a unstoppable force, a triple double almost every time he stepped on the floor, and that guy did not show up in the playoffs. That's why he's being criticized, and justifiably so.
Yeah, and I'm gonna flip it on its head too. I look at it as a positive. Look, we thought Sabonis's mid range 3-point shot was fine, right? It's
Hmm.
been exposed, right? This series, and quite frankly, we could even point back a little bit to the 125 game against the Toronto Raptors, where the Kings were held to 95 points, where they played a similar defense against Sabonis. And that's the first time he saw that look, and he struggled heavily that
Hmm.
game. But now Sabonis knows what he needs to work on in the offseason. We know what he needs to work on in the offseason, which is that mid-range jump shot. If he
Yep.
can get a mid-range jump shot that is anywhere near what Chris Webber used to have, you
Uh-huh.
have a big problem on your hands because you can't play that defense on Sabonis anymore. So, you got to find the good stuff and the bad stuff.
Very well said. All right, some final thoughts from me. You all have been great. You are fortunate that you stood by this team through all the misery over the last 16 years, and you finally have something to be proud of. The scene in downtown Sacramento when I was 2 or 3 blocks away from the arena was unbelievable. The excitement, the passion. I've told you this, and I'm going to say it one more time. I didn't really sit there and cheer loudly for the Kings. I didn't root against them. I wasn't rooting for them. I'm emotionally detached from the team the way I used to be. It just, I mean, if you can't accept that, then you can't accept that. But I'm very emotionally attached to you, and I'm emotionally attached to seeing fans just. I love when fans are rewarded for loyalty, and this fan base has been as loyal as any. And the scene yesterday with a couple of minutes left and everyone chanting Sacramento and giving this team a standing ovation is absolutely phenomenal. So in closing, I'm thrilled for you. I mean that. You deserve this year so much. And I just hope that it's not just a one-year aberration, that this is something you can build on. Because, Ryan, I don't think it's a stretch. This team is very close from winning a couple of rounds and maybe making it into the NBA Finals. They're not that far away.
No, Grant, they are a draft pick and a couple of pieces away if they stay with this culture and everybody continues to improve the way that they improved. And that's why I'm so thankful. And you touched on this earlier in the show. If the Kings would have been swept in the first round, the fans would have been saying, you know what, we were playing with house money. It's the Golden State Warriors. At least we made the playoffs, right? Well, we took them to 7 games and we saw things that we may need to work on. They got that experience. They got to be in that, which is going to make them better for it the next time they're in that environment. And yeah, it hurts as a fan, but it's going to be better in the future. You're going to have a better moment. You got to go through the hard stuff first.
Hey, Marcus, I'm not lying. I don't ever lie when I come on the air. Never have, never will. So, I don't know what else to say. Yeah, I think the next 3 to 5 years will be very bright. I think the only thing that could derail it is a very serious injury to De'Aaron Fox. Other than that, as long as you have Fox, I think you're going to be winning a lot of basketball games over the next couple of years. I really do.
Yeah, 25 years old. He has
Yep.
so much basketball
Yep.
left under him. We have not seen the best out of him. So as long as he can stay healthy, this is going to be a very special era in Sacramento Kings basketball.
All right, we're going to have a lot more programming coming up here. Subscribe if you have not already done so you're aware of whenever this show is going to be taking place. Cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much to everyone for your Super Chat donations, for your support, being here for pregame, halftime, and postgame. We're not going anywhere. There's a lot of things that are going to be going on leading up to the draft and the summer league, free agency. So don't worry. We're going to be doing a lot of Kings content in addition to other things. I've got a lot of interviews lined up. I think you're going to find very enjoyable, that many of them are going to be right here on this platform. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It is going to be a lot of fun. Ryan, I can't thank you enough, buddy. Thank you for all your work, not only here in front of the camera, but behind the scenes. A lot of people don't know how much you did behind the scenes. So I greatly appreciate everything that you've done, and I can't wait to do it again next season.
Me too, partner, and thank you as well, and thank all of you out there. Can't wait to be back with all of you soon.
All right, great stuff right there. And I'll just close it this way. You all are the best. I've been saying that. It's not a cliche. Every city says, oh, we got the best fans. Well, they haven't been to Sacramento if they think they have the best fans. And if you didn't realize that, you realize it one more time after the last 2 weeks with the scene in the arena, outside of the arena, the passion. Everyone knows it. There's really nothing like Sacramento when it comes to NBA basketball. We'll be on many shows. Don't worry. Subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. We'd greatly appreciate it. And thank you so much for all of your time spending right here on If You Don't Like That.